Everybody, JC here with another TNI toy review, and today's review is in association with MarvelousNews.com, your #1 news source for everything Marvel. And today we're going to take a look at the Captain America the Winter Soldier 3¼ inch Rocket Storm Falcon figure. Now this figure is part of the second wave of this line, and it comes packaged in the same kind of generic packaging that we've seen with all these figures. You've got Captain America throwing a shield from the movie up at the top with the Captain America the Winter Soldier logo underneath that, and the figure's clearly displayed on the card back, and you've got a big giant A, I guess, for Avengers in the back. On the side you've got a little picture showing the feature for this figure, which is a big firing missile backpack, and then below that you've got the Super Soldier Gear logo and the name of the figure. On the back of the packaging, again, have the Captain America the Super Soldier logo, along with a little Avengers logo, the name of the character, and then pictures of the figure both front and back, again showing that firing missile feature that it has. There's also a little brief bio about the Captain America movie. And then down below it shows you the Super Soldier Gear, which basically the accessory, this firing missile accessory, will also fit on the Captain America role-playing helmet that Hasbro has released. It's been out on shelves for a while, so you just kind of stick that rocket on the side of the helmet. I don't actually have the helmet, so I can't demonstrate that feature, but it does tell you how it works on the back of the packaging. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging, and though this figure is basically, it's not really what I would consider a collector line. These figures don't have a whole lot of articulation. I think this figure does have a fair amount of detail, and it's probably one of the nicer figures in this series. I think the likeness on the face is pretty good, especially for a 3¼ inch figure. You've got the red goggles, and then you got some nice detailing on the wings. The wings are not detachable or anything, so you can't take the wings off his arm, kind of like you could on the Marvel Universe Falcon figure. But they look good, and he does have the wings do split apart, so you can like bend at the elbow without any problems, so that's nice. The wings are just kind of a rubbery, soft rubbery material, so they have some flexibility there. There's some nice detailing, sculpting on the suit. It's all black with some silver on the pads and stuff, and then the pants are a little bit lighter, kind of grayish black. No camouflage or anything, but overall I would say some nice detailing. Then he does have this backpack that's pretty true to what we see in the movie, and it's removable, so you can have a more realistic looking backpack. And then, as I mentioned before, it comes with this rocket firing backpack, which is really big and red, and it also fits on his back. And then you just slide the missile in, which is a big giant gray missile, and then you push this button on the side and it fires it off, and it fires it pretty good. And I do like that they made the backpack kind of red and more traditional Falcon color. So, you know, for those of you who don't like the fact that the movie Falcon didn't have much in the way of red on the costume, I do like how they at least made that accessory so it looked more Falconish on the figure. But again, if you don't like that, you have the more realistic looking backpack that we saw in the movie that you can put on the figure. The figure stands at just about 4 inches tall. Now, I don't actually have any of the other figures in the Winter Soldier line, but here he is next to the Captain America figure from the first Avenger movie line. I like this figure. You know, I think they re-released this figure in the Winter Soldier line, but it's got less articulation, so I like this version better. If you want a movie Cap in this costume, then I recommend you trying to get the first Avenger one as opposed to the Winter Soldier one. But here he is next to the Falcon figure, and you can see they're in pretty good scale with one another, so they work. And then here, for another comparison, here he is next to Nick Fury, and you can see again he's about the same height as Fury. So scale wise, this figure fits in pretty well with your other movie related figures. if you want to mix and match. And just for one more comparison, here he is next to his Marvel Universe comic book counterpart Falcon figure. Articulation, as I mentioned before, the figures in this Winter Soldier line are kind of lacking with articulation. The head is on a ball joint, so he can look left and right. He has a little bit up and down movement, and you can kind of have it on the ball joint to get him to kind of look ahead. Not a whole lot, but and you got to be careful it doesn't fall off if you have it like that. But there's no hinge on the neck or anything, so there's really no up or down movement with the head. The arms are attached with your standard ball hinge joints at the shoulder. As I said, the wings are not detachable, but they do have that break in between at the elbow so that you can bend the arm. There is a bicep swivel on this figure, and then a single hinged elbow, so you can bend his elbow about that much. There is no midsection articulation on this figure at all. Oh, and the wrists are on a swivel. There's no hinges, but he does have swivels at the wrist. And then, as I said, there's no midsection articulation at all. So no swivel, no ab crunch, no nothing. The legs are on standard ball hinge joints. So he's got pretty good movement there at the top of the legs. He can get his leg forward pretty good and then back. He does have a thigh swivel as well. Only has a single hinged knee though, and then no ankle articulation at all. And then he has two peg holes at the bottom of his feet. That's my review. Overall, I would say this is probably the best figure in the 3 1/4 inch Winter Soldier line from Hasbro. It's certainly not quite on par with articulation that you see in a regular Marvel Universe line, but it's not horrible. I mean, it would have been nice if they had some ankle joints or maybe a midsection joint or maybe a hinge on the neck so he could look forward when flying. But you can still get him in some okay poses. And I think the figure looks pretty good, and as I mentioned, scale-wise fits in with your other movie lines and such. So I think it will make a nice addition. Now this figure, as I said, is shipping in the second assortment. Now the problem is that a lot of stores don't seem to be putting this figure out because they've got so many figures from the first wave still on shelves. So right now, at least, this figure is somewhat rare, so you may have problems finding it. It could start showing up in greater numbers eventually, but as I said, right now it doesn't seem like stores are really putting out a whole lot in the way of the second wave of this line. So if you pick it up, you probably want to grab it, if for no other reason, just because it might become a rare figure. But it's also just not a bad looking figure, even though it doesn't quite have the articulation we're accustomed to with like Marvel Universe and such. So that's my review, and until next time, I'll check you later.